In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.
Welcome to District Divided, a DC sports podcast. I am Amit. That is KDot. It is good to see you all today. Today's episode's focus is on Ron Rivera. As you guys may have been following, we've been doing a Washington Commanders offseason series. Last week, we talked about Marty Hurney. The week before that, we talked about Martin Mayhew. We've talked about Dan Snyder as well. Today's focus, head coach Ron Rivera. And then after that, we're going to talk a little bit of Alex Smith. He was on the Rich Eisen Show, had some comments about the organization as a whole. And then we're going to conclude with Jim Irsay's comments, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, his comments on Carson Wentz, which were very, very scathing. He did not pull any punches. We will get into that. But let's begin with Ron Rivera. Once again, the head coach of your Washington Commanders, entering his third season as head coach of the Washington Commanders, typically a make or break year for head coaches. So far, he's 14-19 for the team with one playoff appearance. Before that, he was in Carolina, where he made the playoffs 4 different times and made a Super Bowl appearance during Cam's MVP season, where Cam Newton played at a level we had probably never seen in the NFL up until that point. So Ron Rivera, very well-established coach in the league. Before that, played at Cal, was a Super Bowl champion with the Chicago Bears, was a very well-established defensive coordinator for the Bears. He also coached under Andy Reid with the Philadelphia Eagles, coached at the San Diego Chargers. He's always been known for really, really good defense. KDot, just generally speaking, what are your thoughts on Ron Rivera? And then we'll get into how he's doing so far.
Class act. I mean, that's the guy is a leader of men. He's a dude that you talk to players that have played for him. You talk to people that have been around him in front office. He's a guy that he makes you want to work hard. He makes you want to be a good person. I mean, you look at even the trials and tribulations you go through the cancer scare, through all and then even the Carolina, if you do some digging as far as like the house fire that occurred with him and his family. Beyond that, the story about his older brother. There's so many times where just through anything, any sort of adversity, he's just been the guy to put his head down and soldier right on through it. And that's even when Carolina was getting rid of him. And we all know that it wasn't that they hated Ron, or it was a new owner after Jerry Richardson was gone, and they wanted to just test some of the younger guys and go in a different direction. I never saw an owner go that far to bat to make sure that people knew how much they respected this guy as he was going to go take another job. Like, it was just, he's a class act. Even I was listening to the John Keim podcast earlier this morning, and you hear John Keim's talking to him. They're at the meetings, league meetings,
right?
And you see Arthur Blank walks by, and Arthur Blank has to get into the microphone and say, "This guy's the best. He's the absolute best. Love this guy." And you walk off. He's just such a well-respected, good guy that you want to root for at every freaking turn.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, honestly. And even when he left Carolina, like you had said, they went to bat for him and said, "Hey, this honestly isn't anything personal.
Right.
We're just looking for a change." He's been around for any number of seasons, and we have an idea of how we want this to go. We're brand new. We're going in a different direction. It's as simple as that. It has nothing to do with Ron Rivera's coaching ability. And that has been a staple of who he is and his ability to deal with adversity. So in that respect, I think he is the best head coach for this franchise right now,
Absolutely.
right? You talked about, the cancer scare and him having to go through chemo in a season where we end up making the playoffs. We have COVID that we're dealing with. We have all the off the field things that are going on and are still going on.
Yep.
Ron Rivera is a leader of men. He looks out for his players. I wouldn't have any other coach. As I did more digging on him, I just went, wow. I mean, just like you said, a class act, stoic through all of it. He is very calm, composed, and looking on how to move forward. Ron Rivera, I think, is a fantastic head coach. And I wanted to also point out his ability to change. So if you look into his Carolina Panthers history, the first 2 seasons, they didn't go very well. They missed the playoffs both times.
13-19.
There you go. Very, very similar record, right? 6-10, 7-9 to what we had over here, 7-9, 7-10. And people called him conservative. He was not Riverboat Ron. And actually, they had started off 1-3 in that third season. And that was the birthplace of Riverboat Ron. He started getting more aggressive with his decision making. And once you know it, They won 8 in a row. He ends up winning Coach of the Year in his 3rd season as Carolina Panthers head coach. So his ability to change, and it sounds like he's embraced some analytics as well. That is what makes him a great guy as well. It's not just the stoic nature. It's not just his ability to weather any storm. It is that he is also capable of change and trusts his gut. I personally, looking through his history, KDot, very glad we have him. Would you want anyone else as head coach of this franchise? Because as I think about it, I wouldn't.
That's Lombardi's clone.
Fair enough. I would take that too.
we killed him the first time.
We did.
So I don't know.
We did.
But even when you say stoic, right? There's so many also clips of him mic'd up, getting the guys riled up in the locker room, especially in Carolina, dropping F-bombs left and right, and just you're like, damn, dude, I didn't even know he had this. Like, there's just this. He has this stoic presence that's there, and he's always. That's the thing is, like, even when you say commander, and I know he grew up in a military household,
he did.
The dude just breathes military to me. He feels like a military commander, like literally. Like he just when you're around enough guys, like even though I know a lot of people, you might whatever. I'm not gonna get into too deep details, but being around a lot of military bases, there's always You got the officers or the guys that kind of dickheads, and you got the dudes that are actually true natural leaders. Ron Rivera, to me, just seems like that guy. He's just a natural, true leader. The fact that even when he took the job here, the research that he was doing, going to talk to Joe Gibbs, going to go talk to everybody just to make sure this is what he's careful and methodical in what it is he does. And I appreciate it. He's loyal to his guys, which I think is, like, sometimes it can get you in trouble, but I do think that that's a quality that I look for in anybody. He's just a good guy, and we're hitting that 3rd year mark, and especially this offseason, he's kind of put a target on him and the rest of the coaching staff's back, and I respect it. I just respect it. He's not shying away from the responsibility. He doesn't do that. He takes full ownership.
So let's actually jump into that for a moment. So up till now, I think he's been the head coach, the prime choice and candidate to be our head coach, and he has been our head coach for the last couple of seasons. But you're now alluding to year 3 and how he's put a target on his back, how he's put a target on maybe the players' backs, general manager, etc. Is this a make or break year for Ron? It typically is. Year 3 of NFL head coaching is typically a make or break. Do you see that being the case here?
Sort of, but it's only if it goes really, really bad.
Okay.
I don't see, even if we're, and I don't, as much as I try, and we've talked about it previously, I don't see this team being 7-10 like they were last year. I think that they do improve just because of the quarterback position. That I just don't, unless it goes just, I mean, horribly. I don't see a situation in which you can. Just because, I mean, he got here under the guise of it was a 5-year plan. Year 3 is when we're supposed to start making that turn, right? Even there's sometimes that I know Washington fans, we kind of cringe when we hear him say how in year 1, winning the division and making the playoffs was almost like a bad thing.
An anomaly. Yeah.
An anomaly, right? That's an anomaly, right? And that's like, if we're being completely honest, I understand where he's coming from. We're all being completely honest. We understand where he's coming from. It's not standard coach speak to hear somebody say something like that, but he's being true. He's tempering your expectations for what the rebuild was supposed to be. And look, this is year 1 of him actually. I mean, shit. If Ryan Fitzpatrick had played the entire year last year and we still ended up with a 7-9 record, then I can understand him being on the hot seat this year. Okay. But we literally just haven't had a starting quarterback since he's taken over. We just haven't. And from that standpoint, like, you get Dwayne Haskins even in there, which he had to kill that because we know Dwayne Haskins was a Dan Snyder pick, and then he's out there gallivanting bowling alleys and all kinds of shit during COVID. We haven't had a starting caliber quarterback. This is his first year with one.
Yeah, and sorry, I just wanted to cut you off for a moment, because to speak to that level of anomaly, right, that happened year 1, we started the season with Dwayne Haskins, who clearly underperformed for being a first-round pick, and Ron, to his credit, moved on from him.
Yep.
In that season, Then we have Kyle Allen, who's playing fine, but gets hurt. Then we have Alex Smith miraculously coming back. And then you have Taylor Heineke starting a playoff game. Have we ever seen a team with that many starting quarterbacks actually make the playoffs? I mean, it just doesn't happen. So when he says anomaly, you got to give it to him. He's right. I can't think of another season like that where a team actually makes the playoffs. Now, granted, it wasn't the best record, fine, but we've seen that at least historically with the Seattle Seahawks, with his Carolina Panthers making the playoffs at the sub 500 record. It happens. But with that many starting QBs, no, that doesn't really happen. And so that ends up launching us into a first place schedule. Ryan Fitzpatrick gets hurt almost immediately. And you see the gauntlet of QBs we played last season. You look at what we have coming up this season, and that's where KDot's coming from when he says, hey, I don't even see 7-10. And with the trade for Carson Wentz, because objectively speaking, we did improve at that position. Whether you like the trade or not, I think we both feel we paid too much. But whether you like it or not, we did get better at that position. So we're going to see how it goes moving forward. But I think the general consensus here amongst two people, your co-hosts, that we feel good with Ron Rivera. It is sort of a make or break year, but it has to go really badly. I agree with you. And that would be like 4-13 or 5-12 or something like that. And with Carson there, Taylor as the backup and playing easier QB, supposedly, we'll see how people progress. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's like we're in this rebuild sort of process happening. And I know that people looking at the Jay Gruden era and being like, well, I mean, we look at all those first round picks we have on defense. Is it really truly rebuilt? Yeah, kind of. This team had no identity for a while. And this is something that he's even trying to do right now, is to give this team identity. But even beyond that, it's Ashburn's a fucking clown show. It's a circus. And trying to manage that itself when you know you're the lead dog. Like Marty Mayhew, Martin Hurt, all those guys. Ron Rivera's the guy. He's the top dog in that organization right now, other than Dan Snyder, who can come down off this fucking mountaintop and meddle and do whatever the fuck he wants to, whatever he wants to. But there's a lot of pressure now, and I think that's the only thing that we've ever seen Ron almost kind of get hot under the collar about, is his defense of what it is they've been trying to do as far as changing the culture. And look, sometimes I actually do wish that he was less frustrated, especially when talking about things like the what Congress is getting into when it comes to the organization. I just think kid gloves, Ron, sometimes kid gloves, but he's just treating it with a certain level of respect that I think he's just annoyed. But can you blame him? I mean, like, you even see this fan base, which we're both part of. We're so rah about everything because of how many years of mediocrity and shit we've had to experience. And he walks into this situation trying to change it all. And it's a very tall task. I wouldn't wish this job on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't. Like, right. I think it's a terrible job, but he's doing it, and I respect him for doing and giving it his all.
Yeah, he's not only trying to make our team a winning team, he's also at the same time rehabilitating the image of the on-field product. Right. So he's got a heck of a lot on his plate. But you hit on the Ashburn Clown Show, and I figure that's a pretty good transition to Alex Smith being on the Rich Eisen Show, which happened just a couple of days ago, where Alex Smith was asked, hey, what advice would you give to new starting quarterback Carson Wentz? And Alex Smith began with a laugh where he just went, man, like, that's literally how he started his answer. If you need to listen to it, we'll put the YouTube link in the description below. But he literally started with that and then said, just try and block out the noise, because there's a lot that happens over there. This is all paraphrasing right now. And that, you know, it's been flawed for 20 years. You know, talking about the organization and the culture. Well, you know, you track back 20 years and it's pretty clear what change happened around then. My thing is, a lot of people came to the organization's defense, stunningly enough, and we're actually disagreeing with Alex Smith. Some people were saying, hey, you are not allowed to talk about the years you were not here. To me, it's pretty well documented that the 20 years have been pretty bad and have been a clown show. So even if he hasn't been here, everyone's got a right to an opinion. He actually did play for the organization. He actually did spend time with the org. KDot, but I got to get your reaction to this. What were your thoughts on Alex Smith's comments to Rich Eisen, and then just sort of some of the backlash to Alex Smith and his comments?
He didn't lie. Not once. It's a fucking clown show. Look, Washington fans with our collective Stockholm syndrome, wake the fuck up. Come on, guys. You can't be that defensive over an organization that's done nothing but fuck you over and over and over again. Do we need to remind you about the Sean Taylor, the Sean Taylor jersey retirement ceremony? Do we need to remind you about that? They need to remind you about the sexual harassment allegations that are happening, which is every once in a while I do see people trying to defend. Well, Dan, come on, guys. Right. Then the moment Dan's on the press or on the sheet from Goodell in the NFL for the media day. Oh, well, it doesn't mean that he's doing day-to-day operation. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Come on, guys. We're all fans of the team, but we can't. Look, this is a safe place. This Divided is a safe place for us. Okay? We got to be able to be real with each other. Alex Smith did not lie. You might have a problem the same way that, anytime when I hear Champ Bailey talk about the Clinton Portis trade for how many years, there's a little part of me that, man, fuck you, Champ. There's a little part of me that does that, but he ain't lying. None of them are lying. We gotta get, I get being defensive. It's our team, and anybody talking shit, come on. He's not lying. We all know this. There's a guy in charge, and as long as he has been in charge, it has been a clown show in Ashburn. And you can try to divvy it up and think about it and twist it how many which ways you try to make sense of it. We haven't won shit. And we've been a laughingstock for an organization that has been so proud and steamed in history and tradition. And look, and motherfuckers still want to fight over the goddamn team name. Just calm the fuck down, guys. Just calm down.
Yeah, it seems like. So, I mean, I'm on Twitter on the District Divided account, a whole bunch at District Divided, where it is a civil war amongst fans every single day. Some people are defending the organization because they go, that's my team, that's my city, etc. I get that. I do. I mean, because I would want to be defensive as well. But at a certain point, don't be blind to the facts that are being reported as well. I mean, there's plenty of articles on Vinny Serrato. I mean, the dude used to act, and all of a sudden he's our GM and he's making all these decisions. And he was just Dan's buddy. That's very well documented. That was Dan's buddy. So just because Alex Smith wasn't here doesn't mean he didn't know about that at some point. He had plenty of time to read when he was rehabilitating from one of the most horrific injuries anyone's ever seen or experienced. Then you have Bruce Allen. I mean, then you have all these Washington Post articles coming out.
The Trent Williams
situation where they didn't catch a cancer. I mean, there are any number of issues with this organization that are ongoing, that are well documented, and that, I hate to say it, are true, right? I mean, that is why the media gets after them. The media, yes, sometimes they can be clickbaity. I would agree with that. I think any local media, any national media are looking for clicks. I would agree, but there is a hell of a lot of smoke here, don't you think? A hell of a lot of smoke.
Fire.
And so, exactly. And so then when you get to, it affecting the on-field product, unless you already know how to win, like the New England Patriots, when they had Spygate and Deflategate and all that stuff. Yeah, they already had 3 Super Bowls when any of that even began. So they already knew what they were doing. So once they heard it, they were like, oh, did we forget how to win? No, they didn't forget how to win. But us, we don't know how to. So when we hear all these things, it's not like, oh, okay, we're the Patriots. We're not the Patriots. We don't have Tom Brady. We don't have Bill Belichick. And we haven't had continuity at all. So when you say, hey, these shenanigans are no, they are much worse than that. Okay, label them properly. And if you don't know how to win, you don't know how to navigate these situations. You don't. Okay. So that's where we're coming from. And I think that's where Alex is coming from when he even says, how could it not? Right? When Rich Eisen asked him, hey, are you saying that these off-field things that are going on actually affect your ability on the field? And he goes, how could it not? Well, here, yeah. How could it not? New England? Okay, maybe it doesn't because they have a culture already established of winning.
But that's the thing is, but even the culture in New England, everybody that talks from a player standpoint says it's no fun. It fucking sucks. You don't want to be there, but we win. So this is what you sacrifice to go do that. You talk to anybody that's worked in Ashburn, the cloud and the aura of the negativity that just surrounds that comes from the top when you can't look the owner in the eye, or you got to call him Mr. Snyder at every fucking turn. Like, there's so many different ways in which that shit trickles down throughout everybody. Not to mention over the years, maybe not now, but I don't know. But I know over the years, you could always have one or two players that knew, fuck the head coach, I can always go call Dan and he'll take care of X, Y, and Z for me. So like, there's always been this shitty culture. Not to mention, if you want to get into, like, we can get hard into the Jay Gruden shit with the shit. Come on. Y'all want to get into that? Y'all want to get into Jay Gruden and why Alex Smith got hurt and like this stories. Okay. There's tons of shit that is going on in Ashburn. And I think that people need to understand from a fan base standpoint, we're all on the same team. All right. We're all on the same team.
Right.
And I think what you got to realize, and what most of these people got to realize, the same ones that are the most diehard defenders of this team, love is not a participation trophy. You don't give, hey, Junior, you got an F. I love you. Fuck you. You're doing just great. I just love the help. No, you need to be critical. You want the best for the team. You want the best for the things you love. Part of that is being critical. Part of that is not accepting less than that. And this is where we're at. We want to see something change. And nothing's baby steps, but we got to be able to at least have the honest conversations about this organization. And everybody just running to the case to why would you ever defend that guy? Like, think about it. Why would you ever put yourself in a position where you're defending him and realize that you kind of fucked up if you did?
Yeah. And I think maybe early on you can understand, hey, it's a fan. Maybe year 3 of ownership, year 4 of ownership, and stuff like this didn't come up clearly at that time. But year 3, year 4, you're just like, okay, Dan's new, whatever. Some weird stories, but like, you know, you've got more than enough of I won't even call it a sample size at this point. I mean, he's been around for 23 years. So
it's red flag. You can't have the ego of Al Davis and Jerry Jones combined with no results, buddy.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
And if Congress is involved too, whether you agree with it or not, the fact that they should tell you all you need to know.
Right? No, it's a witch hunt. Yeah. They're just trying to change names. It's the woke culture. You're just trying to cancel culture.
Shut the fuck up.
And this exact same committee has helped reform baseball, college football, college basketball. So it's not like there's no precedent here. Okay. And yeah, they've got plenty of other things going on too. I promise you, this is not the only thing they're focusing on. This is one of many. But yeah, we could keep beating the dead horse, or we can talk about Jim Irsay, who beat
one more thing.
Go ahead.
If you are a fan of, let's say, the Redskins, I'm just gonna say it out there right now, know this: Dan Snyder killed this team and this organization long before the name change. We are looking towards something new, and we have to change ourselves in this team and this culture. And like Ron Rivera keeps saying, we need to win on the field. And this is what we're trying to do by keeping that guy up in that fucking office, by keeping his paws off the rest of the organization with all the negativity and the bullshit that he brings. If you read any one of the reports or go talk to anybody that's worked here, that worked in Redskins Park or in Ashburn, and they'll all tell you the same fucking thing. There's not going to be a lot of defenders of that man unless you wanted a fucking cheerleader tape. Man, rest man.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess that's a pretty solid note to end that on. Yeah. Let's just move on to the Jim Irsay comments on Carson Wentz, because our new QB did not exactly have a fan in the ownership group over in Indianapolis. So here's a quick sort of synopsis on how he even got to Indianapolis. So Frank Reich, former offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, becomes head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Then he goes to bat for Carson Wentz. Indianapolis is looking for a quarterback after Phillip Rivers, and they go, what should we do? Frank Reich goes, hey, I had Carson Wentz. He was an MVP candidate, would have been MVP if he didn't get hurt in 2017. This is our guy. They trade a first-round pick for him. There's Philly eats some of the cap, but like the point is, they went to bat for this guy. Then they lose a Week 18 game to Jacksonville, as Pat McAfee likes to call them, Clown Town, where people are dressed up as clowns. And they lost pretty badly, actually. They were 15-point favorites in that game, at least 15.5, I think, was the official. And they end up losing 26-11, I want to say was the final score there. So they end up losing by 15 instead of winning by 15 or 15.5. And Jim Irsay loses his mind. So he ends up speaking to the media at the NFL league meetings about Carson Wentz. And I'm going to read a couple quotes, KDot, and then we'll get into your thoughts. But this was, guys, if you want real talk, you should love Jim Irsay, because this guy absolutely loves speaking his mind. So first off, on the Week 18 loss to Jacksonville, he goes, no disrespect to Jacksonville, which means it's coming. No disrespect to Jacksonville, but I mean, they're the worst team in the league. I mean, if you play well for the first quarter, they're probably looking to go to the locker room, like the game's over. I can't emphasize how shocked and disappointed I was. I don't have the words to describe the level of that letdown. I mean, I've never seen it in my life. Okay. So then he ends up calling an emergency meeting with GM Chris Ballard, head coach Frank Reich. It's described as an ass chewing by Chris Ballard. And what Irsay basically did was he talked to a handful of veteran players. And what Irsay learned, he said, quote, Jacksonville, that loss clearly wasn't an accident. You search for the right chemistry with any team. Football is as important as any sport there is. If that chemistry is off, if it isn't there, it can be extremely detrimental and lower performance to a degree that is stunning, and shocking. Oh my God, there's something wrong here and it needs to be corrected. Finally, the Colts do trade Carson Wentz to us for a pair of third-round picks, and we're taking the $28 million. He does admit that they were considering cutting him if they did not find a trade partner, which would mean eating $15 million. I'm going to end with this quote, and then we're going to chat. Carson is not the scapegoat, Irsay clarified. It simply didn't work out for us and what we are trying to accomplish. I mean, he's a good man, a good father, and a good quarterback. No, and a guy who put a lot of effort into the year and worked really hard and wanted to have success. It just didn't work out. And sometimes you feel like you have to move on because you can't always persuade people to do things differently if they don't want to do them differently. And he basically concludes by saying, hey, we didn't want to move forward with the mistake. He basically called Carson Wentz a mistake. And if you look at the Colts offseason moves, there's only one big one. Head coach is still there. GM is still there. Defense is still intact. Jonathan Taylor's still there. Offense is largely intact. What changed? KDot, what were your thoughts on Jim Irsay's pretty scathing comments on Carson Wentz? And do you think that we as Commanders fans should be worried about it?
No, to the last part. I'm not worried about it at all.
Okay.
Jim Irsay, Carson Wentz is a scapegoat. Okay,
100%,
like, this is what it is. And you hear Frank Reich even after like a couple days ago, it was like or 3 or 4 days ago, where he explicitly said, no, you cannot scapegoat Carson. He's done X things really, really well last year. Look, I told you, I went back and I watched that goddamn Jacksonville game. Jacksonville wanted it harder than that entire Indianapolis team. And I think what Irsay's looking at is, look at what Irsay has to compare to as far as starting quarterbacks for Indianapolis, especially starting quarterbacks with fanfare. Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. Kind of hard shoes to fill if you're not a certain type of personality. And if Carson Wentz is not the rah guy in the locker room or hip hooray guy in the locker room like Andrew Luck, then I think that he just looks at it and he's got a bad vibe from it. And the way that season ended, it was one of the biggest collapses ever. There was no reason Indianapolis should have lost that game. But I'm sorry, I cannot watch that game and think that it was Carson Wentz that did it. I look at him like Jonathan Taylor couldn't get anything off the ground until the third quarter. He had one run in the second quarter, third quarter is when he got, and they were trying to run the entire offense through him. And I get it. I mean, Jonathan Taylor looked like the best damn running back in football, right? But they just couldn't get it right. And it was like, I don't know. There was a lot of times when I'm looking at Carson, I'm like, dude got talent. Dude still's got talent. I don't know. He needs all the pieces to kind of work for him. I don't think he's been fantastic, but he has talent and you can see it. And I just think it rubbed Irsay the wrong way. But Irsay has always been runs in the fucking family. I'm right now sitting in a basement in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm a few blocks away from 33rd Street, where Bob Irsay stole the fucking Baltimore Colts in the middle of the night and took them over to Indianapolis. Fuck the Irsays. Now I'm joking. I'm just like, come on, man. You can tell Jim has, this is his agenda. He doesn't want to admit that maybe he got it wrong with Frank Reich. He doesn't want to admit that maybe he got it wrong with Chris Ballard. No, here's the simple thing. Carson Wentz. I'm just going to blame Carson Wentz. Or Carson Wentz might have said something to him that he didn't like. Because you can get the vibe that Carson Wentz has maybe a sense of humor. Is the vibe that I get. He has a sense of humor that does not jibe with everyone. And that's okay. And if that's the case, that it just rubbed Irsay the wrong way and he was looking for a reason to can his ass.
Yeah. And so more in this Athletic article by Zach Kiefer, who we've quoted more than one of his articles at this point. Just to read that one mistake. Oh no, I lost it. Where was it? But anyway, I'll find it later. But the whole point here is that Jim Irsay is an owner that took control of a situation. Simple as that, right? And we're well familiar with it. The article did say that he rarely does it. So it's not like you can say, oh, Jim Irsay equals Dan Snyder. This is different.
No. Ooh,
okay,
no.
So just to be clear, just don't go there and be like, oh my gosh, he's involved in everything. Actually, he's not. This is a pretty rare occasion, according to Zach Kiefer of The Athletic, where an owner, Jim Irsay in this case, stepped in and made a personnel decision, right? Even the Matt Ryan deal, they shipped that 3rd round pick, and he actually got on the phone with Chris Ballard and said, you better get this done, right? So he is directly influencing the QB situation here. And I think for the Colts, they probably are better off with Matt Ryan. So maybe it does work out. But this was quite clearly, yeah, he's a great quarterback. But this quite clearly was Jim Irsay pushing this whole thing, saying there is absolutely no way we can continue with Carson Wentz as our QB, to the point that they may have even cut him without a trade partner, meaning they just lose $15 million in the cap.
The only decision Jim Irsay has had to make over the last how many years he's owned this franchise is, should I let Peyton Manning, who's 72 years old, leave for Andrew Luck, the second coming of Christ? Literally it. That's it. That's all you've had to do, Jim. Like, it's this. So right now, like, I think he's antsy for the next thing. He has a certain set expectation he has in the quarterback position, which good for him. I mean, it's a high fucking threshold. It's a high standard to keep. I don't think he'll find that too easily.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Right. But you go from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck. And then beyond that, what have you been doing? Jacoby Brissett and whatever.
Phillip Rivers.
Phillip
Rivers. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
old
boy.
Phillip Rivers, right?
Oh, boy. Yeah.
So it was like he's trying to find that fix at quarterback. And I'm sorry, what you were used to for all those decades. It's not.
Doesn't grow on trees.
Thank you, bud. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
Calm the fuck down, Jim. Calm the fuck down.
Yeah, you and 28 other NFL franchises. Yeah, here's the direct quote again. I didn't have regrets about the trade for Wentz last year. I mean, you try to make the best decision you can from the position you were in, and it's a tough league, and it's tough being right. So he does admit, hey, look, it's tough being right. And I think the worst thing you can do is have a mistake, Carson, and try to keep living with it. And so that is where his mentality was. At a certain point, he deemed Carson Wentz a mistake. I'm willing to bet that when he spoke to those veteran players, he did not speak to Carson Wentz. He already had his mind made. He's like, hey, tell me it's Carson. Just tell me it's Carson. It's not. Yep. Try that again. Say that one more time. Oh, it's a yes this time. Okay, cool. We're going to ship his ass off. That's basically what happened here. So in that respect, maybe this does work out really, really well for us. And maybe this was just a product of, maybe we're the beneficiaries of an owner just flying off the handle and going, you know what? Can't do it with this guy because Carson Wentz is 29 years old. He is still capable of changing himself. We talked about it with Ron Rivera, for example. People change. And Carson Wentz might recognize that this is one of his last chances, if not his absolute last chance to be a legitimate starter in the league and run with it. I don't know. Those quotes actually gave me hope, funnily enough, where I was like, okay, he literally lost his mind. And that's the reason we got Carson. I mean, because if it were up to Chris, I'm actually not 100% sure we would have gotten him.
that's the thing, is that if it wasn't for him stepping in, I think Indianapolis is completely fine with Carson Wentz year 2. I think Frank Reich and the rest of the team, because I'm also looking through their roster right now. What veterans did he speak to?
Probably Darius Leonard. Darius Leonard would definitely be one that he spoke to.
So 26 years old and plays defense.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably talking about the veteran leadership. Leadership is probably more the focus. I get it,
but I'm just whose opinion do you need?
I would be surprised if he spoke to Pat, honestly, McAfee.
Maybe just
dude, they're boys. They're quite clearly boys. What do you think of Carson?
No, here's the thing. I think Jim, is it wrong to say I'd love to grab a beer with Jim? But
I would love to grab a beer with him.
I know he has his struggles with his alcohol, but he's
a wild guy.
He's a wild motherfucker. Like, Jim would be an amazing, like, man, flying in Indianapolis and have a dinner and a beer with Jim Irsay would be a great fucking time. I just think that, look, I give him you make the move, right? You do what you need to do. You make the move. You get it. You get it done. But the same way your pops moved that team from Baltimore to Indianapolis, so you guys sucked ass until this guy named Peyton Manning came from Tennessee. You might be too rash in your decision making, sir. But we'll see. I mean, they lucked into having Matt Ryan because of everything they have with the Deshaun Watson situation. And I think that'll work out for them. But I think this is Jim Irsay kind of being the luckiest owner, just kind of meandering through, and shit just happens, and it happens in a good way. So I don't know.
Right. The people. Here's one we missed. Nyheim Hines, I'm sure, was consulted. He is a very well respected Indianapolis Colt. He's in the backfield alongside Jonathan Taylor, a pass catching back. In fact, I'm sure he was consulted. Again, Darius Leonard. Kenny Moore is young, but he's a leader on that team. I'm willing to bet he spoke to him as well. And then they have a pretty, well-known offensive line. So I'm willing
that's the
Quentin
only
Nelson,
thing
for example.
I'm thinking Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly,
right?
And
Ryan Kelly.
But you've heard all the guys from the offensive line have come out in support of Carson,
which makes it weird, right? And so that's what makes me think we've got conflicting sources, right? The people actually coming out and saying, "Hey, Carson, sorry this happened, and we love you, would have run it back," to Jim saying, "Hey, I spoke to a number of veteran players and this is the change we chose to make." So something isn't adding up there, and I'm willing to bet it's the owner who has the ultimate power to be able to make something happen. I think that was the takeaway from that. So, again, it gives me some optimism about Carson Wentz. Now the final question before we conclude, because we're on the same page there. We're on the same page the whole day today. How about that? Pick 11. It's fast approaching. The NFL draft, April 28th, first round. If Malik Willis is there, do you think, just a hypothetical here, do you think the Washington Commanders take him, or do you think we end up trading that pick to somebody else?
I think we stick there and draft a receiver,
even if Malik's on the board. Because one of those receivers could be available. So Pittsburgh picks at 20. It's becoming very well known that they want somebody.
Like the Malik Willis, I'm falling in love with Malik Willis the closest we get to the draft. I don't know if I absolutely believe that Washington wants to get a quarterback in the first round. I think they're probably looking at something happening later. Because I really do believe that they're kind of all in on Carson for right now. So I don't think they're looking to replace to have his replacement as much as they want just a young guy who can learn and come up through the system. If you get Malik Willis at pick 11, I think there's an expectation soon that he's looking to be the guy to lead the franchise, maybe in a year or 2 years. But I really do believe what I'm hearing from Ron and the organization, in the sense of, we drafted Carson, Carson's the guy. Or we traded for Carson, Carson's our guy.
You could think of it as we drafted Carson. We gave up draft capital for him.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's 29, and it's like you are already putting an expiration date on that trade by taking a Malik Willis in round 1. So I do agree with you. I would go any one of those receivers, right? Or if Kyle Hamilton's there. They've talked a lot about getting that Buffalo nickel position taken care of. John Keim on his podcast talked about it. Landon Collins could still potentially be an option, depending on pride, depending on his own options. Landon Collins, that is. Kyle Hamilton supposedly is getting buzzed to be one of the best safeties that's been available in the draft in quite some time. But we'll see. And on the note of safety, a very, very happy birthday and, rest in peace to Sean Taylor. who would have been 39 today, April 1st, 2022. I know we talk about the Civil War on Twitter between Washington Commanders fans. There's no Civil War there. Everyone loves, respects, and misses Sean Taylor. Hope the family is doing well and hope he is resting in peace. Any quick Sean Taylor thoughts and how much you miss him? Because I miss him so much.
It's Lord knows what this organization would have looked like if Sean Taylor had been here that entire time. It's the biggest what if. Yeah. Maybe ever that we can imagine. Maybe you look at 2012 RG3, but he was a bona fide on his way to be a Hall of Famer, and you rarely get that come through here. And just what he meant, the style of play, and what it meant to the community. Every Sunday, just being able to cheer that guy on. Lord knows if he would have been the most fine safety in the NFL when the rules kind of changing, but so I don't know. I still hope we would have got rid of Ron, or because Dan Snyder's it would have ended up like fucking Trent Williams, and we got a Hall of Fame need to go somewhere else. I don't know, but I miss you, Sean. We do miss you.
We miss you dearly, Sean. And just to, like you said, speak to his impact, he was turning around his life with the rules change. I am 100% confident he would have been able to work around that too and been the Hall of Famer he was destined to be. But yeah, that's the show, guys. This was District Divided, DC Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Next week, we're talking about Scott Turner, who recently got a contract extension. We're going to talk about the Carson Wentz impact, some of his quotes in the past, talking about QBs that need to make all the throws. So we're going to get into Scott Turner over there, and then the week after Jack Del Rio, and that's gonna just about wrap up the series. Then we got NFL draft talk. We're gonna see if there are any additional moves made, and we may even drop an episode on the ever continuing sexual harassment scandal, and now apparently financial impropriety, because why not just throw it all in there? This is what this organization's about. But thank you guys for listening. I'm Amit, that is KDot. We will see you next week. April 1st.
Don't defend Dan Snyder. Do not defend Dan Snyder, people.
Please stop doing it. Please, it's good for you too.